Hi, so in this battle report, I'm bringing you my Nighthaunt again. I'm not that far away from actually being able to get Nurgle together. In fact, I can almost technically do that now. They're sort of painted well enough for my standard. But another Nighthaunt one, this time against Hosts of Slaanesh. It's again another player who's not played Age of Sigmar before. We're all sort of, there's various people sort of getting into it at the local gaming club. We're going to be having a 1,500 point tournament in a few weeks now. I'll be talking nearer the time about whether I decide to take the Nighthaunt or the Nurgle. They're two very different armies that I've constructed, so it's a bit up in the air on that one. So, what the situation here was, this particular player who's developing a Host of Slaanesh army for that particular tournament. This was a thousand. It was actually a little over 1,000 points. Actually, I think he said it was about 1180. But I think when I worked it out on the army builder later on, it was actually something more like 1140 or something. Can't remember about that. So it was a little over that. So I had 2,000 point list, and I thought, that's a new player, and I looked at it and I thought, should I not use the list with the black coach? Because the black coach does an awful lot of damage. It's the nastiest thing in the Nighthaunt army. So I went with the other list and then just added another unit to it. I've actually taken my Chain Rasp Horde this time. I've not used those before. You know, just as I just threw those in. But in general, it was taking what I think are the units that work best together when I don't take the black coach, which is the Murmorn Banshees, the Bladegeist Revenants, the Spirit Torment, hero choice, and Guardian of Souls. Those together are fearsome. Absolutely fearsome. That combination is... there is no other word for it. It's fearsome. So anyway, let's go on to deployment. So I elected to begin deploying first because we basically had the same number of units, I believe. I'm sure we did. And I thought, well, I really want to determine who has the first turn, even though it may not have mattered in the end. I wanted my opponent to have the first turn. So I started deploying first. I just put my Spirit Host down there. I knew that this Slaanesh, I was only vaguely aware of the rules. I have read since in more detail. Slaanesh is a favourite of mine, or from Fantasy Battle days, but until it gets its own battle tome, which hopefully would be on the way, as there's Slaanesh models coming out with the Wrath and Rapture set. But until that time, although it has rules in the General's Handbook, and they're not terrible, but nonetheless, I think they could do better. So I knew that I was going to be charged rather than go on the offensive myself. So I thought, just create a little block in the middle, so spread out a little bit, but a little block in the middle. And then the units I talked about with the great synergy, the Murmorn Banshees, the Bladegeist Revenants, the Guardian of Souls, and the Spirit Torment were going to be in reserve. The idea being that this army would come onto me very quickly, and then I could get round the side, whichever looked to be the weakest side, the best one to charge into, and I could bring that in, hopefully get the first turn in battle round 2, and then smash into it. And the thing about, Slaanesh in general, it looked to me to be a glass hammer. They've got lots of attacks. Lots of attacks are always good, even if each individual attack is not amazing, but you've got plenty of them. And they're very fast, of course, so they can pick their fights. But they don't really have the resilience of some other units. They certainly don't have the disgusting resilience that Nurgle do. They've just got basic armor saves, nothing fantastic. So, yeah, they needed to get lots of attacks in. So, yeah, I chose for my opponents to go first. I was vaguely aware of movement bonuses and being able to run and charge and things like that, but I thought they're not really going to get across the table. It turns out when I was reading things later on, the Seekers of Slaanesh can actually do that, because not only do they roll 2d6 on the run, I believe, but because they can run and charge as well, and you can add various bonuses and all the rest of it, they can actually scream across. They could have screamed across and mugged my general, I would think, the distance they were at. But I didn't really realise they were quite that fast at the time. But also, I don't think, even if I'd have thought about that, I still probably would have done it anyway, because that would be them putting their Seekers way out ahead of everything else, unsupported, not necessarily a great idea. So, my opponent basically moved up, and moved the Seeker Chariot, Seekers of Slaanesh, and some Demonettes of Slaanesh there. The Demonettes of Slaanesh units were only 10 strong, and that's going to be a bit of an issue we'll talk about there. and I'm going to do a separate strategy video based on this later on, about a couple of things I've thought about based on this game. My opponent, of course, just to go through everything they've got. So 1 unit of 5 Seekers of Slaanesh, Seeker Chariot, 2 units of 10 Demonettes of Slaanesh, Mask of Slaanesh, Herald of Slaanesh, a Sorcerer Lord of Slaanesh, and the Exalted Greater Demon of Slaanesh as the general, which is like a double wizard. It's basically the Hosts of Slaanesh starter box set with a few other things added in as well. So they just basically move forward, try to cast some defensive things, you know, Mystic Shield on a unit. That sort of got ahead. I couldn't actually do anything about that. Although my general is a wizard, he was more than 30 inches away at the time from the Exalted Demon. And that was basically it. And this is an ideal outcome when your opponent, when you make your opponent go first. The ideal outcome is all they can do is cast some defensive spells and move forwards. And that's it. That's absolutely ideal. Because what it means is then in my turn, when I take my turn, I can move. I can bring on my units there. I now know the lay of their battle line, so I can decide where I'm going to bring those on. And I decided to bring them on the left-hand side. Plenty of units in the way between them and the Exalted Greater Demon of Slaanesh. The plan was to mug the heart of their army and then roll into the Exalted Demon of Slaanesh from a position of strength there. Moving my Grimghast Reapers up with the aim of trying to charge the Seeker Chariot and just moving things up, keeping my general out of it. The white unit behind the Bladegeist Revenants on the left there is the Spirit Torment, and the model just below it is the Guardian of Souls. That's another of my wizards, so I've effectively got 2 wizards now on the field. And the Chain Rasp Horde, I didn't really know what to do with it. I just sort of moved it vaguely towards the Demonettes of Slaanesh. Just curious to what they would both do. They're both quite similar. Chain Rasp Horde have got 2 attacks each. They're not brilliant. They're not, you know, so pound for pound, not as good as the Demonettes of Slaanesh from that point of view. They do have a 5+ save, unlike other Nighthaunt units that all have a 4+ unmodifiable save. Chain Rasp Horde only have a 5+ save, but it is still unmodifiable. Demonettes have just a 5+ save, a normal save, but as Chain Rasp Horde don't have rend, the 2 together should be, you know, the Demonettes of Slaanesh have better quality attacks, but it's really a case of who's going to get those attacks done first. And so then what I did, declaring my charges, I got my Grimghast Reapers into the Seeker Chariot, had to include bringing the Seekers of Slaanesh into combat as well. There was no way I could avoid that. But that was fine, that was okay. But nothing else did. I tried to charge my Spirit Host into the Demonettes of Slaanesh. That didn't work. There were no other charges realistically. I tried to charge the Bladegeist Revenants and the Myrmidon Banshees. Neither of them got their charge off, but that's okay. I don't expect them to. The chances of it is about 1 in 6. And with the, you know, with having 2 units to try and get in, well, it's one about, you've got a reasonable chance, but it's still an unlikely chance. But I certainly don't base my strategies on bringing them into a reserve and then trying to get a charge on. My expectation is in my next turn to be able to move them into charging position. It's the icing on the cake if you get a charge in as soon as they appear. I'd cast Mystic Shield on my Grimghast Reapers though, just to, you know, help those out if needed. But other than that, there's not a lot going on here. I managed to do some damage to the Seeker Chariot. It did a little bit of damage against my Grimghast Reaper. But other than that, it was just all even Stevens. I managed to kill one of the Seekers of Slaanesh as well with some overspill when I piled in. Seekers of Slaanesh, again, didn't really do a lot. So then, when we rolled the second battle round, my opponent won the roll-off there. They would have won ties as well, but it wasn't a tie. They just straight up won. So then, plenty of movement went in here. So what my opponent did at this point is move the Demonettes of Slaanesh around to try and charge my Grimghast Reapers sort of in the rear. The Mask of Slaanesh moved forwards with those. Herald of Slaanesh moved towards the Demonettes of Slaanesh, which also moved to try and get in charge range of the Chain Rasp Horde. The Sorcerer Lord just kept moving forwards. It didn't actually run. I did sort of suggest to my opponent, if it's not going to charge and it can't shoot, you might as well just run it and it can stay behind, but he was happy enough for it to stay back there. The Exalted Greater Demon of Slaanesh moved forward with an eye on the Spirit Host there. So when it came time to declaring charges, all the charges really got off. So the Mask of Slaanesh and the Demonettes of Slaanesh whacked into the Grimghast Reapers. The Exalted Greater Demon of Slaanesh moved sort of corner to corner, really, of the Spirit House. The Demonettes of Slaanesh and the Herald of Slaanesh charged into the Chain Rasp Horde. So we were going to be set up for plenty of interesting combats here. So this, I don't know whether there was huge mistakes made here or not, but my opponent chose not to go with the Demonettes of Slaanesh first, which is, I think, what I would have done, to try and reduce, to at least do some damage on the Chain Rasp Horde. So what realistically happened was that the Exalted Greater Demon of Slaanesh attacked, didn't actually do a hideous amount of damage to my Spirit Host. Remember, my Spirit Hosts have got 4+ unmodifiable save, followed by a 6+ Deathless Minion save against any wounds that doesn't cover. And a total of 2 wounds were done to it, which didn't kill a whole model. It just left 1 model on 1 wound left. They've got 3 wounds left. So I then elected to beat up the Demonettes of Slaanesh with my Chain Rasp Horde. I wanted to try them out and did plenty of damage. You know, they've got 2 up. They've got 2 attacks, sorry, and there were plenty that I could pile in around it. I did a good amount of damage and wiped out basically half the unit. That, of course, meant that later on when the Demonettes of Slaanesh wanted to attack back, there's just not as many then. Then, you know, more damage against the Grimghast Reapers from the Demonettes of Slaanesh. But then what I did with my Grimghast Reapers is I loaded as many attacks as I could into the Seeker Chariot, with the exception of the Champion. Champion in a Grimghast Reaper unit has Death Knell, which is only 1 attack, but it's like 3s and 3s. But it does 2 damage. But if it slays any models, then I can choose to do a mortal wound on any unit within 3 inches. So I did that on the Demonettes of Slaanesh. I used him to attack the Demonettes of Slaanesh. You know, got an unsaved wound, which of course killed 2 of them, and then applied my mortal wound to the Seeker Chariot. Got a load of other Grimghast Reapers to attack the Seeker Chariot, and that wiped that out. Got some more to attack Seekers of Slaanesh, killed you know, another one of those. And then the rest of them on the Demonettes of Slaanesh, didn't bother with the mask. And that killed a few more of those, in fact. Quite a lot of those, in fact. And then, again, my opponent sort of returned fire both ways. Only managed to kill 1 Chain Rasp Horde. It was, that was not ideal. But a few more Grimghast Reapers went, but the unit was still holding there. So then became my turn. Now, in the magic phase, I first of all was able to use Soul Cage as a brilliant spell on the Exalted Greater Demon of Slaanesh, and I got that off successfully. It wasn't unbound. That basically meant that until my next hero phase, the Exalted Greater Demon of Slaanesh in combat phase can't retreat, and it also has to go last out of all the combat, so it can't. Everyone else gets their turn before it does. My Guardian of Souls cast Soul Tether on my Grimghast Reapers, which allowed me to return D6 of them back and basically put the unit back up to full strength. So that being the case, now I had no units which were looking fairly weak. I was actually saying although it was a little unlucky, the Exalted Greater Demon not killing at least a whole Spirit Host base. It was never going to kill, unless it was lucky, the whole unit. You know, statistically speaking, I knew that the Spirit Host would stand against the Exalted Greater Demon unless he got actually very lucky. But I was actually slightly disappointed. All he did was 2 wounds, and the reason was because my general has a battle trait that allows me to raise D3 slain models in range. And so if it had done 3 wounds and killed a whole base, I could have brought it back. Because it just did 2 wounds, it can't heal. It just brings back slain models. There were no slain models in range of him. He was too far away from the Chain Rasp Horde. So yeah, that's how that went. So in terms of moving, of course, what I did was get the Bladegeist Revenants to, you know, move in charge range of the Seekers of Slaanesh. At this point, of course, because the Chariot had gone and the Demonettes on the other side, it would have been overkill to have moved the Banshees and the Bladegeist Revenants. So those Seekers, the Bladegeist Revenants, quite frankly, were not even going to need all of their attacks at this one. This was going to be an epic mugging. So what I did is I used a Nighthaunt's command ability, which allows my general to teleport any of my units and plonk them on the battlefield, as long as it's, you know, within 12 inches of the general and more than 9 inches away from enemy units. Now, I know it doesn't quite look like that. It looks like my Merman Banshees are rather closer than 9 inches to the Demonettes of Slaanesh there, but at this point there was like one model left, so it all worked out fine. So they were more than 9 inches away from everything else. It's just not ideally represented the way I'm representing this here. With their beady eyes on the Exalted Great Demon of Slaanesh, which I knew that, again, I probably was not going to make a charge into, but you never know. And moved my Spirit Torment and Guardian of Souls to try and get within range of as many units as possible, because the Spirit Torment provides a buff for models in range, whereby they can re-roll ones to hit. But with the Bladegeist Revenants, with their in range of a Spirit Torment, they can just re-roll failed hits completely. And the Guardian of Souls, with units wholly within 12 inches of them, not just units within 12 inches, has to be wholly within 12 inches of them, which is why positioning is so important. Get +1 to wound. So the Bladegeist Revenants, for example, when they're going to fire their charge in, because they're charging, they get +1 attack as well. So they're going to have 3 attacks. Hitting on 3s, but remembering re-rolling failed hits. And with the Guardian of Souls, wounding on 2s with -1 rend. And that's a fearsome amount of damage. So, what I then did in terms of the charges, I managed to get the Merman Banshees. They had an epic charge, which meant, in actual fact, it represented here. I only actually got a few of them in combat by moving it to that side of the Exalted Greater Demon, which is what I wanted to do. But what happened was, if you roll a 10 or more with Nighthaunt, then you get to have a free attack in the charge phase, as well as have your attack in the combat phase later on. So that's what I did, and managed to basically, well, I think duff up the Exalted Greater Demon quite badly. And then again, combat phase, remember, it had to go last. The Seekers of Slaanesh were just completely mugged. Of course, they weren't going to stand up to the Bladegeist Revenant. The Demonettes of Slaanesh were also destroyed there. Again, Chain Raspor took a few more casualties, but not very much, and battered the Demonettes of Slaanesh there. So going into the third battle round, and I actually won the roll-off there. So the situation after movement sort of looked like this. I wanted to cast Soul Cage again on the Exalted Greater Demon, and I got that off successfully again. So that all worked out. Moved my general. At the point, I just like the Guardian of Souls and the Spirit Torment, I don't really want to get them into combat unless I have to. They can fight in combat. They're not ideal for it, but they can be okay. The Spirit Torment better. But because they're so important for buffing, position is much more important with them. No point in risking them. But the general is a better fighter. It's not amazing, but I was still holding him back as well. The Exalted Greater Demon of Slaanesh, I was definitely not going to get my general attacking that unless I thought I could kill it off, just because the reason my opponent is taking this model in the first place is because in our tournament we happen to know that someone's going to be playing Daughters of Cain and taking Marathi, who, you know, in a form has like 12 wounds but can only suffer 3 wounds in any one turn. So it's going to take you at least 2 full battle rounds, at least, to kill her. In the meantime, she's going around rampaging. So he's taken this because it has an instant death mechanic. What this Exalted Greater Demon can do with a hero within a fairly shortish range can say to that hero, I'm going to do this thing to you, which allows you the option of being able to re-roll ones to hit. But regardless of whether you do that or not, at the end of that combat, the Slaanesh player can roll a die, and if it rolls a 6, that hero is dead. Just dead, instant. So, didn't really want to risk that. So I was keeping it well out of the way, and just, because it's providing buffs as well, like at this particular point in the combat phase, I can give, for example, use a combat point to give my Merman Banshees an extra attack. That doubles their attacks and makes them hugely potent. So I just moved it back there. But, you know, in a sort of, you know, charge phase, I sort of mugged everything around the Greater Demon. Now, I have to show this bit by bit because the first thing that happened was the Bladegeist Revenants, again, on their rampage, destroyed the Exalted Demon. But because the Bladegeist Revenants, again, rolled a 10 or more for their charge, they were able to do that in the charge phase. So it's still the charge phase, and now my Spirit Host, my Murmur Banshees, are... I think actually by that point the Spirit Host had retreated. I don't know why I haven't put that on there. But the Murmur Banshees were free to do a charge of their own. They're not in combat anymore. So they charged into the Demonettes to finish those off, as well as the Herald, over there. My General, who was thinking about going in and finishing off the Exalted Great Demon, didn't need to do that anymore. So it's actually my opponent that pointed out that I could just charge it into the Mask. So that's what I did. So moved those into there like that. And there wasn't really a lot else to do. My General did kill the Mask of Slaanesh. The Murmur Banshees killed everything else. So all there was left at the end, this is going into the Slaanesh's turn 3, was the Sorcerer Lord, who's looking at this Nighthaunt army that is pretty much at full strength. The Chain Rasp Horde had lost a few models. The Grimgas Reapers had lost a few, even though I'd got it back to full strength, they'd still lost a few more. And that was it. And so the Chaos Sorcerer Lord was weighing up his options and decided that discretion was the better part of valor, and legged it, basically. So that was that one. I think there are a couple of learning points in this one that I was coming from a Slaanesh point of view, because it's an army I like. I just wish it would have a battle tome. And I'm going to talk about some of them in a separate strategy video, but what I would definitely say is quick learning points here, in terms of the fact that it's the Nighthaunt ability to be able to deploy basically half your army and have another half that can pop up on either flank or the middle or wherever you like in a coordinated mass. The coordination of Bladegeist Revenants, Murmur Banshees in range of Spirit Torment and Guardian of Souls is so powerful. It's such a powerful thing. And when I'm sort of thinking of this tournament, it really is a choice for me between taking Nurgle and Nighthaunt, assuming I paint the Nurgle up in time. Because on the one hand, I've designed the Nurgle armor to be big, scary, great unclean one, all that sort of thing. And then this one, because it doesn't have anything particularly nasty anyway, it'll have a black coach. That's nasty. That's the nastiest thing I've got. But it's average level of nasty. But the units just work so well together. The fact that against a lot of attacks, not all, it's different matter when mortal wounds are flying around. Against a lot of attacks, having the 4+ unmodifiable save for most Nighthaunt units is so good. It is incredibly good, in fact. And the fact that they synergize so well together. The fact that they can all fly, although that could be a disadvantage, but I'll talk more about that nearer the time. It's such an adaptable army in terms of if you're going to apply a strategy that basically focuses on a weak portion of the army, the fact that you can deploy in reserve effectively is so powerful. The fact that they can fly and although infantry units, the Banshees and Bladegeist Revenants have such high movement. In fact, the Grimgas Reapers have got decent movement as well. For infantry, it's very good movement, in fact. It's really a halfway house between standard infantry movement and cavalry. It just makes it so very, very powerful. Whereas the Slaanesh one, I haven't quite worked out exactly what gives it its power, because although it's very fast and it can absolutely pick the charges, and it did, it picked the combats it wanted to do. It's not like in Fantasy Battle Days where, you charge in and you will get to go first. It's not how it works. As the person whose turn it is when you've charged in, you will get to choose, unless you're playing Iden of the Deepkin in Battle Round 3, you will get to choose one unit to go first, but then your opponent chooses another unit. And if you've charged in all at once, as is very likely, In turn 2, it's very likely the Slaanesh army is going to go crashing into you. It means that you're alternating who gets to go first. And because the Slaanesh units are not very resilient, I think what you'd inevitably need are lots in the unit. And I think that's where my opponent has maybe regretted things. Just taking, for example, 10 strong units of Demonettes. There's not enough of them to get its full attacks back. You need to be able to absorb damage and then still deal maximum damage back. Whereas if you're getting all of your units into base combat, that means everyone that dies before you get to attack with it is attacks lost. Whereas if you have one stuck in the back that can't get into combat, well, that's okay, because if they're attacked and killed, you just take those off. You've not lost any attacks for that combat. It's not actually okay losing models, but it is in this context. I think that's a big learning point there, because all the units were basically minimal-sized units. You know, the Seekers, there were 5 of them, but there were only 5. The Chariot you can have as a unit of 3, but there's 1 of them. You know, and as I say, the Demonettes were 2 units of 10, whereas, you know... and because all they've got is a 5+ save. And that's it. No special save after it. You know, it's modifiable, so any rend is going to, like, upset it a lot as well. Yeah, you have to do that. And it also proved what I sort of thought, because, you know, I gather the reason why lots of people are thinking of taking big nasties in their army for this tournament is because they're all worried about Morathi. But I think, you know, what I said was, I think the best thing against Morathi is not a big, powerful character. It's actually a resilient unit. Getting a unit that's very resilient isn't going to crumble quickly, because it needs to stay there for a while and wear her down. That's probably the best way to do it. And Nighthaunt, in theory, should be able to do that. The problem is if Morathi gets lucky and she actually wipes them, because you notice my units are not huge. The Chain Rasp would be okay, but Morathi would get to pick her fights against me as well. And some of these units are quite small. And although resilient, the problem with like really powerful combat characters like Morathi is if she does average rolls, I've already worked it out in advance, if she does average rolls, she will do significant damage, but she won't wipe out the unit, and I should, in theory, be able to hold out long enough to be able to make my hero phase, even if my opponent gets a double turn, and replenish their numbers. But if you get lucky, and you don't have to be wildly lucky, then you could end up with the unit being destroyed before you can like prop it back up again. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, don't forget to click the like button, subscribe for further content, comment down below please on your own thoughts. There will be another video, as I say, coming out in 2 or 3 more days as a follow-up to this as well. And thanks for watching. And until next time, I'll see you later.